we announced today in terms of that US job numbers. I mean, and yes. I mean, the pattern is obvious. If those numbers are good, it tells us the US economy is improving, and that has an impact on dollar strength and a pending interest rate hike.
That's what's running the markets. That's what's controlling sentiment and controlling the direction of trading. But I think what we have to say, talking of trading, looking at these markets, it's so balanced on a knife edge. It's not an investor's market. It's more of a trading speculator's market right now. And I think that's what needs to be appreciated.
Yeah, and you just look at what we saw this week in terms of the anxiety around that interest rate hike, the rand taking a bit of a beating. Where do you see this currency going, Ian?
Over what period? If you have to say between now and the end of the year, weaker. Why? Because the fundamentals of the South African economy are weakening. The factors governing new investment are weakening. We don't seem to be doing enough as a country to encourage foreign investment. You can see it, foreign direct investment. Yeah. There isn't any. There are no foreigners queuing up to start factories, to bring in new equipment here. And what that is likely to mean is further strain coming from the current account deficit, the budget deficit. Whenever you see deficit, it's growing. That's the wrong way around. Therefore, I think this will be reflected in a weaker rand. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see it moving considerably weaker, perhaps another 5% or so in the next few months.
So it does underscore the domestic challenges that we need to mitigate against as September approaches and this anxiety over that interest rate hike.
Absolutely. We have to try and grow an environment which is friendly towards foreign capital and towards domestic expansion. We're not doing very well. It seems to be rather the opposite. And when the president says, you know, the government does not interfere in the process of business, I'm afraid it doesn't conform to the fact that the Minister of Mines can just withdraw a mining license and put 1,500 people out of work immediately.
Yeah, speaking about government and its interactions with business, let's look at what happened with mining this week. I mean, we've seen the mining minister convening a meeting with all the stakeholders in the mining industry. We've heard talk about a license being pulled out of Glencoe. Yes. A few hours ago, we've heard that no, he's actually, went back on the ban, took a U-turn. It's a bit of a scary state for mining at the moment.
Uncertainty is the worst factor. It's the worst input for markets. And this is the problem. Whatever seems to be happening is developing even more uncertainty. But you know, there's another way of looking at this. Yeah. Both the private sector and even now the public sector seem unsure of where to go. Perhaps that's what we need, a shock tactic to say, you know, we're running out of development capital. We're not going to be able to carry on the way we have. We're not going to be able to provide the social grants, whatever it is, the infrastructure development that government wants to do. What are they going to do? Suddenly the answers aren't apparent, and maybe it's this shock development to both private and public sectors will get this coming together and hopefully a practical development.
And I suppose you're speaking to, as well, if you look at the contribution mining is making to GDP, not at all what it did a few decades ago. Something has to give here. Sure.
This was an industry that, say, 50, 60 years ago was 40% of the economy. It's now less than 10%. You know, it's not only just lower commodity prices, it's a heck of a lot else which speaks to the operating environment with which they have to cope.
All right, I was hoping to speak about company results. We just have time for one company. Right. Yesterday, I saw a remarkable performance by paper and packaging company Mondi. Yes. You look at SABC. It was dreadful, the results, wasn't it?
Yes. I mean, profits down by over 80%. Wow. Dreadful is perhaps an understatement, I think. And they still got a huge debt pile of around about $2 billion, real money that it's owing. And, you know, I think that it's a question of management. It's a question of strategy. They seem to have been followers rather than leaders. Mondi, you can see it in the results. They have been leaders regarding where to go with their business development. And I'm afraid that SABC have definitely not done as well.
Yeah, and they did that with all the talk of what the internet was supposed to have done to print paper. But Ian, as always, thanks very much indeed for talking to us.